created everything. Look what a powerful being you are. You did these things, but now you're in a human body, you forget the power you have.
Never heard that before in my life, but I like it.
Welcome to Meta Mystics, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan, and my newly found co-host over here. Welcome back to the show again, Cody.
What's up, Cody Codester here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for some time. Michael, aka FurtherLiberation, is finally here.
Cheers. Yes. Excited to have you here, Mike. I feel like it's been a long time coming. I feel like we talk a lot about the same type of things. But what caught my eye was in your bio, you said mentoring mystics. So you're the guy who the mystics go to.
I know it's a big claim, right?
Hey, I'm here for it, though. That's why you're here, you know?
Yeah, well, I guess that to me is, in a way, awakening the mystic within, because not everybody has had a mystical experience. But what I end up doing with the people I work with is mentoring them in such a way that leads them to their own experience of the divine. So even if they're not a mystic yet, it's almost as if that we all have the capacity to become mystics.
Yes,
and that's totally kind of my goal.
Agree. Yeah, and you know what? The magicians will say that everybody's a magician. The witches will say that everybody's a witch.
Exactly.
You know, it's all the same thing. We're just putting, cool flair words in front of it. I'm not going to lie.
Totally.
Like, I think mystic sounds the coolest out of all of them.
I like it a lot, too.
You know, very, very connected to the mysteries and the unknown and the occult. And I'm like, dude, give me all of that. You know?
Yeah, I hear you.
It's a collective kind of thing.
Totally.
So, and that's what I found is that, I've talked to a lot of people over the years, a lot of people who are on their own spiritual journey or people that have come on the show and, tried to talk about what they believe in and, things of the sort. And I love talking to the witches and the magicians and the occultists and the Hindus and the Buddhists and you know what I mean? Like the Taoists, all of it. But I really do believe that kind of mystic really incorporates all of them.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, it was my own mystical experiences that led me to all those things you just named. They're all branches of the same understanding, of the same truth, in a sense.
Yes, of the old Ein Sof, you know?
I don't know that one. Ein Sof. Was Sof like Sophia, like knowledge, like...
Well, is it called Ein Sof or Ein Sof? Whatever the Kabbalistic tree of life is.
Oh, Kabbalistic. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, or Yggdrasil,
Okay.
With the Vikings.
I see. Oh, wow.
I love
cool.
all that Norse mythology. That's my shit.
Beautiful. I have a feeling I'm going to learn a lot here. This is excellent.
We're going to learn a lot from each other,
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, we would love to really get to know you a little bit. How did you come into, the mentor of mystics, sir?
Okay. Well, that could be a very long story. But what I'll try to do is make it concise for you. I would say that I had my own mystical experience. I didn't know that's what was happening. When I was about 24, I'm 37 now. Yeah, 37. So when I was about 24, I had what some might call an awakening. I was in a deep pit of suffering for a few years. Well, in some way for most of my life, but it got really, really dark. And then I kind of just dove into my own psyche, wondering what the truth was. I was always fascinated with truth. I was always oriented towards what is the absolute truth. I wanted to understand reality ever since I was a little kid. And the suffering kind of pushed me into understanding even more. And it led to some experiences, both sober and with psychedelics, that were very mystical, very eye-opening, heart-opening. And one of the experiences in particular gave me a total, what will be described as mystical experience. I diffused with God, the infinite, the eternal nature that we are. Michael no longer was. It was just a distant memory that I couldn't even grab anymore. And I found myself just kind of in this infinite void of nothingness, which shifted into an infinite space of everythingness, which was just this beautiful warm light. And I knew in that moment, this is what every religion is pointing to. I knew in that moment that this is what people call God. This is what people call heaven. This is our home. It was so clear to me and so deeply known to me that there was nothing that could refute it anymore. And I tried. Like, my mind was really active at that time, and I was able to ask all the questions. Could it be this? Could it be that? And it was just shown to me how, I don't even know how I'd explain it now, but even entertaining the question, could this just be a hallucination? Am I losing my mind? And it was like, well, yeah, you are losing your mind, but that's the point. Like, exactly. You lose your mind, you find the truth. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, so I eventually, because of these experiences, my entire life shifted. My mental and emotional world basically just reset from what I was experiencing back to like factory settings. I was back to like a newborn babe, just in love with life, curious about everything, understanding I was one with all. And the only ambition that continued to surface from my experience was to share it with others. Like, why aren't we all aware of this truth? If we were all aware of this truth, we would have a very different world, and we would all be a lot happier and a lot more in love. So it became kind of my life's work, whether I liked it or not, to share it as much as I possibly can. And I grew up kind of using my skills of articulation to try to convince the people in my life to see things the way I saw it. And that was kind of a safety mechanism to protect myself. If everybody understood me, then I could be safe. So I had that kind of skill of being able to explain what I think and feel. And therefore, I translated that into my work. And it was no longer a protective mechanism. It was no longer a way to make me feel safe or to convince people of anything. It became a way to offer what I see to be the truth to others in a clear way that they can understand. So that became kind of subtly my work. I wasn't making it a thing. It's just everybody in my life eventually became someone I mentored in some way. And I've also received a lot of mentorship from people that started coming into my life. And over the past few years, especially through a number of synchronicities that I won't get into here, I was led into kind of owning my path. Like, this is my dharma, clearly. Why am I still working in these ways? Why am I still contributing to a system I don't agree with? And I started to lean in more fully into offering my assistance to other souls. And then I started realizing that there was many different layers to it, and that evolved over the years. And now for the past like 6 years, and especially the last 2 years, I've really leaned into my role and the roles I play. And that's where I find myself today, is doing the majority of my work now is mentoring people, counseling people, guiding them on their spiritual journey. That is the majority of what I do. I still have a little bit of other work on the side to supplement my income from time to time, which is all still things I love, like teaching music and tutoring kids and things like that. So I've always find myself in this teacher role and guide role. And yeah, there's so much more I could tell you about the story, but I'll let you kind of pick and choose where we go with it.
Yeah,
And,
well,
yeah.
I love the direction, man. And one thing that seems to keep popping up amongst people who have had experiences with the divine or with God or in non-duality, or in heaven, or you have a near-death experience, or what have you, whatever it is, everybody says the same thing. I've got to go back and I've got to tell people this. It's the same thing time and time and time again. And it's because it's so profound, and we're living in such a world without that knowledge. Like, you see people who are in fear, or you see people who are depressed, or you see people with anxiety, and you're like, man, if you only fucking knew what you were, like, if you knew not who you are, what you are, like why you are, you would not get, so stressed out over literally spilled milk. And I don't mean that in a degrading kind of way. We all go through some kind of trauma, but whenever you find out who the fuck you are, it's like literally anything could happen to you, and it's all spilled milk, because we continue to exist. We are that of the divine, the I am that I am. And that's not what really chaps my ass is whenever is whenever like religious folk, you know, I try and talk to people like this and just try and like remind them and shake them. I just want to be like, oh my God, just understand. And they're like, oh yeah, he thinks he's God. I'm like, oh my God. Or he thinks he's a God. I'm like, dude, you are missing the entire point. Like, stop with all of that. Like, so much so that I started looking into all of the people that were, you know, bastardized because they looked into the occult and realized just that, right? Like people such as Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner, like Alan Watts, like people like this who understood it and I love it. Yes.
Just started reading Steiner the other day. Yeah, he's amazing. Please continue.
We actually just did an episode on Steiner the other day too.
Ooh, beautiful.
But yeah, I love all of that, you know, mystical Christianity. I love all of it, really. But it's whenever people get dogmatic and then they start, you know, judging and they don't even understand that whenever you hold that resonance or that energy of judgment, that's not just expressing outwardly. Like you're manifesting that inwardly. And what a shitty feeling that is. Like you ever like paid attention to what it feels like to judge somebody? Like you feel icky after that, you know, like nobody likes that. And so it's like, man, these people are so sure, but they're completely clueless on what's going on inside of them. You know,
I hear you, man. It's a thing that comes up a lot for me, honestly, because I'm sure you witnessed this too. Like there's this almost like revival of Christianity in a sense. And some of the more, how would you put it? Like Abrahamic religions, the ones that have the doctrine of separation, you know, the idea that we are separate from God, we are inferior to God. That whole doctrine is like being revived.
And I feel like it's becoming more extreme nowadays too.
Yeah, in some ways it certainly is. Yeah. There's the skeptic in me sees it as a way to kind of, how would I put it? Hijack the awakening. You know, it's like, well, they're all discovering God is real. We can't hide God anymore because it's showing up in the science. So what are we going to do? Well, if we really, you know, lean in on this Christianity idea that we are inferior to Jesus and there's demons that we have to fight and vanquish and there's something scary to fear all the time, we could at least keep them in this disempowered state. And that way we can lead them more and more into the Orthodox Church where they believe they are separate from God and they'll stay in this kind of cycle of being disempowered. So I just see God showing up everywhere in the world now. And I see this crazy movement, especially online. It's like people that lean into the Christianity pipeline. It's like they're getting the most attention. They're getting the most push. And what's in the media, what's the alternative media that used to be a source of truth is now leaning further into separation doctrine on many levels. And there's competing in, you know, the people that were voices of truth for conspiracy theories a few years ago are now competing against each other.
Dude,
and there's this constant division going on.
I not even to cut you off here, but let me tell you, I used to have a pretty big conspiracy podcast. It was called The Cult of Conspiracy. It's still around, but I decided to step away from it less than a year ago. And the main reason why I stepped away was because I realized that my own creation was like outgrowing me in a sense that anytime I brought up any type of mystical idea, I was being dragged through the mud. It for some reason, it became so damn dogmatic that anytime you questioned anything religious or any, you know, nature of reality, you know, I would literally, people would stop listening. I would get people in the comments saying, you know, so my co-host name was Jacob, and they would say, Jacob, I can't believe you let this demon on your show, and like wild shit, man, only because I'm questioning things. I'm like, it's a conspiracy podcast. It's literally made to question everything. Like, why am I not allowed to question everything? Well, so what? I can only question the things that you hate and not the things that you love. Like that makes no sense. And
haven't you learned that yet?
I know. But as far as like, there are some people out there that have really been ramping it up. And I know first word or first name that came to my mind whenever you said that was Russell Brand. You know?
My God. Yeah.
Oh my. You want to talk about absolute crazy. I used to love Russell Brand. I thought he was funny as all hell, right?
He was so good.
And next thing you know, he's getting baptized in the River Jordan in his fucking whitey tighties. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Why is this on? You know what I mean? It's it's all for some kind of show, I think. And they know that is where the masses are. So go get that cheddar, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It certainly seems that way to me. I've seen so many big names that I used to follow and admire in earlier years lean into the direction of it's either Christianity or it's just division in general. And it's propping up a system in general. Like just the idea of introducing a new system rather than understanding the system is rotten from its core. They're taking people like, let's say Joe Rogan, who used to be a lot more controversial and willing to speak about everything. Maybe about 10 years ago, absolutely adored his podcast. And now I see him, interviewing the biggest technocrats in the world, basically ushering in our new technocracy for everybody to grab onto and just everybody to put a chip in their brain and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're almost trying to make these people seem more human. Because they seem very robotic. I mean, you start talking to JD Vance or Mark Zuckerberg or any of these other people, I'm like, dude, these are the people that are trying to implement a new world order, and we're trying to sprinkle a little humanity inside of that. I don't want to look at them in a positive light. You know what I mean? I want to look at everybody in a positive light, but I don't want to look at that information spreading like a virus like that.
Yeah. I think it's important for us to look at them in a positive light, in the sense that Mark Zuckerberg is clearly somebody who got attached to some form of gratification, some sort of attention, some sort of wealth, some sort of power, and somebody started pulling his strings and manipulating him to use him as a puppet for the quote unquote new world order. So I have compassion for the man who is trapped up in or lost in all of that business, but it's hard for me to humanize his mission. I can't look at his mission as something noble.
Oh, dude, have you ever looked at how Facebook was formed? I'm not talking about the movie and as the traditional thing goes, but so the CIA was working on some kind of social media platform to be able to collect the masses' data, without them really even knowing. And to be honest, we've gotten to a point where people don't even care if their data is collected. And it was a CIA project, and it was called what was it called? LifeLog, I think it was called. Okay. And they shut down the project. 1 month later, Facebook was formed.
Okay.
It was identical. And so the whole origin story of Mark Zuckerberg forming it in his college dorm, I'm like, dude, they saw some really smart guy in some Ivy League school or wherever he went and was like, look, we want to make you the face of this. We're going to give you all this information. I guarantee you it's something along those lines. I
wouldn't be surprised. I kind of live with the perception that anything that happens on the global stage was orchestrated to some degree. If it's making waves all over the planet, somebody orchestrated that event. And I just can't see it any other way, given everything I've learned over the past 20 years or so. It's just so obvious to me. And clearly there is a move to a world that just continues to suppress the human spirit. That's obvious to me. There's no amplification of the human spirit. There's a suppression of it. And it exists on every level of every institution that we can possibly imagine. And it's hard not to see it that way at this time.
I know. You know what though? I've grown to look at it in a different way. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a little fiery whenever I hear people like this talking about how a brain chip is going to make their life a million times better. But I almost look at it in a way, because it's man, there's clearly so much evil going on. And so much that it's become commonplace that people don't even necessarily identify it as evil anymore. But whenever you got literally all of your data being collected, whenever you got all of the Epstein stuff, that literally, it's all out. It's just the names that are redacted. We know what they did. They're literally eating babies. It's and nobody's gone to jail over this. And then they want to say that Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking children to himself. I'm like, what are you saying? What the fuck are you actually saying? And people are buying it. It's really strange. But it's I almost look at it as strangely enough, I almost see it as that's kind of the trigger for the awakening. Because if all that stuff wasn't going on, I don't know about you, but Like my main awakening happened because of COVID. Like I saw all the nonsense with all that, and I was like, oh, so it goes way deeper. You can't even, because I always trusted big pharma. I was like, oh, these people are like, I met nurses and doctors. They seem very, nice and well intentioned and stuff like that. But it's like, oh man, it goes beyond the nurses and doctors. It's within the doctrine. Like it's, so I almost look at it as it's almost like a trigger for awakening and an obstacle for anybody who is on this kind of journey, Yeah,
I 100% agree with you, man. I feel if you zoom out far enough, everything is in service to the light. That's without exception. Even the worst, even the Epsteins, even everybody that was engaged in that, they are in a way showing us ourselves. When we as a collective are addicted to comfort and pleasure and disassociation, we produce the extremes of that. So every time we attach ourselves to comfort, disassociation, and distraction, we are feeding the egregor that feeds Epstein and his crew. So everything that we see that's horrific on the global stage is a reflection of our choice to be governed by our lower nature without understanding and transcending what's really happening. And I want to also note that lower nature doesn't mean bad nature. Our desire for comfort is natural. Our desire for pleasure is natural. But when these become our top priority and we don't access wisdom, which allows us to gauge when and where to give in to pleasure, when and where to give in to comfort, and do what's right for the whole, when we don't engage with that, that's when we end up being governed by our lower nature. And our whole society is designed to amplify our lower nature and our addiction to it. And we, as individuals, are feeding it by, signing up for Netflix, by eating fast food all the time, by getting addicted to pornography, and all these different things that are just keeping us trapped in this cycle of, I want more pleasure, I want more comfort, I want more disassociation. When we do that as individuals, we send that creation out into the field. And so all these quote unquote evil beings are showing us ourselves in an extreme form. So we have to look at those parts of ourselves, even if it just shows up in me as I like sugary chocolate every now and then. But if I just keep eating sugary chocolate, I'm feeding that same monster. But if I do it consciously and choose it from a different perspective, rather than doing it to avoid my pain, or rather than doing it to just find comfort when I don't want to deal with something I need to be dealing with, if that is the mechanism that I'm feeding, the coping mechanism that I'm feeding, then I'm feeding that egregor that thrives in our world. So it's almost as if we all have to become mystics. We all have to become followers of the way. We have to choose truth and love. We have to choose to honor our temples. We have to choose to honor everything in existence, including ourselves. And from there, that's what will shift the world. Not just putting Epstein in jail or, throwing Trump under the bus. Like that will just cut off the head of the Hydra, and we'll just grow another one or two for it to continue. We have to make the shifts within our own selves.
Yeah. And one thing that I always hear people say is like, isn't it crazy how the good guys always won? It's like, it is like kind of a funny thing in history, how that's
one of the
always
chances.
transpired. Yeah, but then you start really digging into it, and it's like, all right, if these were the good guys, I want to know like what was on the agenda for the bad guys. I'm not saying that all the bad guys always lost. Like, of course, there's going to be a little bit of mixed bag in there, but like some of the bad guys allegedly that were defeated back in the days. Were have you ever heard of the Cathars?
I know the word, but I don't know much about them.
So Cathars were, I think it was somewhere like on the southern tip of France way back in the day, like in the, I'm terrible with dates, in the early thousands. And they were Gnostics, and they believed that they were following the way. Well, the problem is that they were starting to essentially wake other people up and convert all of the Catholics in that area for the longest time. And so the Catholics started basically hunting all of these people. Now, these people were, they followed literally Jesus's words, like the Gnostic Jesus, the one where you look into the Nag Hammadi and that kind of stuff, right? You know, Gospel of John and all that. Not Gospel of John, Gospel of I can't remember.
Maybe Matthew. Oh, Thomas, probably.
Thomas, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But they were essentially following that to a T, and they were getting bastardized for it. But whenever you really look at it, it's like, man, those people were acting a lot more like Christian than the Catholics and the, your today's type of Christians. They were following it to a T. Like, family units were staying together. They were building together. They were building agriculture together. Like, and they were, they held like prayer sessions, and they just followed it to a T, right? And it's so fascinating because they ended up getting like taken out and on orders of the Pope. The Pope was basically coming after all of them. And like, there was a quote, I can't remember what it was, but it was basically like a apostle Paul quote in there that basically the Pope was telling his commander like on why you should be coming after all these people. I just find it interesting whenever you got like, it's like these people, they come from an enlightened position, but then they're all for killing and murder. It's like that baffles me all the time because it's like, if you're working on behalf of God, how, like, I don't know about you. I never got a message from God that I needed to kill somebody. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems kind of ass backwards.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Weird shit, but it's like, people like that. And you think about the witches that may or may not have been burned at the stake. And I know some people are debating that these days. And it's just like, man, they almost took out all of the people that were trying to cause a global awakening or a flat earth awakening, if you're into that kind of thing. But like, just an awakening amongst the masses. And there's always been something that has been holding that back. Now, some people will say, well, it's because they got the royal bloodlines, or maybe it's the reptilians, or maybe it's, I've always heard that it was the occult, but I look into the occult and most of the occult is not like that. Most occultists are actually fucking awesome people. Like I never met an occultist that like sacrifices people by any means. I'm sure there are some, there's always going to be a turd in the punch bowl, as they say, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. But anyway, sorry. Oh, I wanted to say, so my brother is still very young on his spiritual journey right here, although he just gave me a story in the last episode that makes me believe that he's not as young on his journey as I once thought. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and check it out. It was the episode that we did with the near-death experience. Fucking wild, that guy. And so me and Cody talked a little bit after the show. It was really good. But is there any kind of like guidelines you can give to somebody who is new on their journey?
Oh boy. Let me sit with that. Let me feel into that. I don't want to pull from my mind. I want to see what comes through my heart on that one. Feel free to edit my silence out because I don't know how long I'm going to be in here.
No worries.
I can't help but have my knee-jerk reaction to that because it's so deeply, it's so deep in me, and it resurfaces over and over. And to me, that's just following what is true. And that's what it was for me, is just simply seeking what is absolutely true, no matter how I feel about it. That was my mentality that led me to truth, and my experiences was not trying to find knowledge that made me feel good or safe. I was willing to basically accept the Christian version of hell if it were true. I wanted to know if I'm going to burn for eternity. I want to know. I don't want to run from knowledge anymore. And when I stopped running from knowledge is what led me to a deeper understanding. So truth is like my North Star. It's where I fix my compass all the time. That being said, it's important to understand that I see truth and love as kind of synonyms in a sense. They're different sides of the same coin. And so love, even though I'm guided by truth, when I speak and share the truth, it's really important for me to be in my heart and understand how I'm feeling and get a sense of how the other is feeling as well. Because if I'm speaking what is true with words, and I'm not in my heart, and I'm not sensing where somebody else is in their heart, then it doesn't matter what words I say, it'll go in one ear and out the other. I'm often reminded of that Bible verse. It says something like, do not cast pearls before swine, which basically means don't give the good knowledge to the people that aren't willing to hear.
Right.
And so I kind of live my life that way. So when I say to someone like, seek the truth above all things, it doesn't mean just think about everything. It doesn't mean just cognitively, digest what you believe based on just rationality and logic. Although those are really powerful tools that you need to work with. But there's something about feeling into the raw emotion of human experience, getting in touch with the biggest fears we have. That was one of the aspects of awakening for me, is that I asked myself, what am I really afraid of? And I was shown like my fear of death. That was obvious. That came up immediately. And then it was the fear of the unknown. Like, it wasn't only that I'll die, it's that I have no idea what happened when I die. And then I feared staying alive and living for eternity in agony. Like I just went through all my existential fears, losing all my loved ones hating me. I allow myself to experience and process the raw emotion of these things. And through that processing, that digesting, it was almost as if the energy of it unfolded and opened up and created like this connection to the field. I was no longer holding the fear centered in my heart, like, oh, I don't want to die, which makes me separate and makes me just like an individual entity separate from everything else. But if I say I'm going to die someday, so be it. I might be in pain someday, so be it. I might suffer until I die, so be it. When I just like let down my guard from that, there was almost like a softening of my energy field that merged back with the total field. I was no longer just the mind and body of Michael. I was also no longer just the energy of Michael. I wasn't just my own individual torus field. My own torus field disentangled and became the infinite emptiness. And so there's this kind of, I guess if I'm wanting to guide anybody in any way, it always comes down to those kind of simple principles. Just seek what is true and be willing to feel what is alive in your body and mind and heart. And don't run from what's present. Every psychedelic experience I've ever had, the number one thing that comes online when it starts to kick in is be with this. You're uncomfortable, be with it. Just hang out with your discomfort. And so I'm sure there's a million different branches I could take from there and go into specifics. When I have someone sitting on my couch across from me and I'm speaking to their particular life, it gets a lot more specific and a lot more nuanced, but it's always guided by the fundamental principles of being okay with what is absolutely true. And just facing that and accepting that is all that's really needed. But you need to be able to do that through the heart. You need to be able to experience the truth, not, oh, we're all going to die someday. And you just live up here thinking we're going to die. You need to let that wash over you. I'm going to fucking die, man. That's something huge. Like, holy shit. Yeah. Or my mom's going to die, or like the world's going to end. Like, all that stuff needs to be experienced through the body, because God came here to experience all of it. And if we reject experience, we are not doing our duty as a fractal of God. We need to be able to let God into every point in reality so God can permeate all points of consciousness. And if we're not doing that, then we are leaving God's awareness out of certain points. So therefore, we'll need to keep living it over and over again, so we bring consciousness into it. If we keep rejecting our experience and trying to get out of our experience, we'll have to come through it again to bring love into it, to bring consciousness into it, to bring awareness into it. So that's the general. Feel free to pick at any thread you wish. I can go anywhere you'd like.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. Wow. Those tips are sure to elevate me a bit.
Beautiful.
Especially the digesting raw emotions. You got to get serious with yourself, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Just let it all down. Peel back the onion and let's build.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I like it.
Yeah, there's something about experiencing the raw emotion without adding a story to it, because the mind is a storyteller. The mind is a meaning maker. So you could feel raw sadness in your body. You're like, man, I'm fucking sad. And you just feel it. But then the mind says, I'm a worthless piece of shit, and that's why I'm sad. And that's the story. And that story will keep you in the sadness loop. But if you let go of the story, it's just sadness. I believe right now that I've lost something. I'm experiencing that I've lost something. And on some level, I have. But on a deeper, more profound level, I can't lose a thing because I am the one that is. There's nothing that I can lose because I am all of it. So I can cry because my friend is mad at me. I can cry because a loved one dies, because I feel this human connection to them. And I just process that raw emotion. And then I'll actually give you a story that's a little bit more contextual. About, 2026? 11 years ago, my father passed away. And this was after I had, quote unquote, awakened. So it, in many ways, was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had, because I got to watch a loved one die. And it was both tragic and beautiful at the same time. And in the days and weeks after that, I found myself spending a lot of time in the basement of my mother's house, because I flew home to be with my family. And I was just playing a lot of guitar, just playing music and singing. And the rest of the family were upstairs, lots of visitors coming, bringing us food. It was really beautiful. We were so taken care of. It was just, I have such fond memories of that time because of how much community showed up, how much love showed up. But aside that, I found myself spending a lot of time alone, and I would just be playing guitar. And if we have any musicians here, you might notice that the minor chords have a little bit more emotion to them, have a little bit more sadness, a little bit more darkness. So I'd be playing some major chords, and then I would strum a minor chord. And the moment I would feel that, it would, like, the vibrations go right into my heart, and my heart would crack open, and I would just bawl my eyes out for like 10 minutes about my father. And I'm like, I miss him, and I can see his face in my mind's eye, and he's smiling at me. And the last hug we shared was so beautiful. And I would just experience this raw sadness, which was so precious to me. Because if I didn't hold the story of he's gone, my sadness actually let me feel his presence again. When I cried with him in my mind, I felt him in my heart. I'm like, Dad, you're still here. I love you, man. And you're not on the physical plane, and that's okay. I'm going to be okay, but I fucking love you, man. And it was so beautiful. And if I really embraced the raw sadness without the story of my dad's gone and this is terrible, then what happened was the image and the story of my father would start to dissipate. And then I found myself just feeling the raw sadness of humanity. Like, all humans feel this. We all feel loss. Animals feel this. Cows feel this when you take their babies away. We all can feel this raw sadness of loss. And that experience was just so beautiful. And it didn't leave me depressed. It didn't leave me like longing for my father to come back to life. It was just like, wow, man, sadness is fucking heavy, and it's beautiful. And I love that it exists, because on the other side of that, there's this beautiful happiness. The sun shines again. Holy fuck, the sun is bright right now. And I just find myself like, really awake and alive. When we allow ourselves to feel our emotions fully, we feel awake and alive and ready to face whatever comes our way. And so I really encourage that to everybody I work with, but anybody who listens as well, is to not run from your feelings, not run from your emotions. There's so much gold in them, and we can move through all of them no matter how heavy.
Yes, you're on fire. I love it. And by the way, so we did an episode a long time ago, because I've always been curious about people who could like see auras and stuff like that. Like, man, I want to learn how to do that. And one of the tips and tricks on how to accomplish that is by maybe if you hold up a piece of paper or just anything like a white background, or you can even do it up against the sky or something like that, but something, really bright. And and if you just put your fingers close enough together and to where they're almost like a micron away from each other, you can almost start to pick up a color that is resting in between there. And that's how you would tell your aura. And so I was like, I just remembered that. And as you were speaking, I was just drifting into a fucking theta state. And, and I was just like looking at you and trying to see if I could see an aura here, because you were really in the flow there. And I mean, I kind of noticed that you have a bit of a yellow aura. Now, I don't really know the definitions of them, so I had to look it up. But the yellow aura I found, it says represents joy, mental clarity, optimism, and intellect. And so I was like, oh, that's exactly what's happening right now.
I love preaching the good word, man. I fucking love speaking the truth. It brings me so much joy. Because I get out of the way. I just feel God moves through me. Like, show me the truth, God, I'm here. And it always filters through Michael's mind, and Michael has his own vocabulary and he has all this stuff with him. But every bit of fear that would try to control it or make it a certain way, or think, am I saying this right? Am I speaking too loudly? Am I saying or like too much? All that just disappears, and I just let it flow, and I feel fucking alive. And I mean, the sun shining is making me really alive as well, and that's probably contributing to my yellow aura a little bit, but I love it, man. No, yeah, I feel so optimistic. I got nothing but love and faith and hope for humanity. This to me is obviously the time of our great awakening. There's no doubt in my mind that this round is the end of the great cycle. I know that you guys dive into this type of stuff as well, having watched your content of all the prophecies and all the ways in which it's even evidenced in like the precession of the equinox and the ages and so on. We are literally at the cusp, or at the beginning of what we might call the Aquarian age, or we're starting our ascension into the Sat Yuga. This is what's happening now. And there's no real fucking it up this time.
Yeah,
except for individuals. Like it's all layered, man. It's hard to say anything truthfully, definitively. But yeah, go ahead.
No, it's so strange too, because I'm like, so it was probably up until about 2 years ago, I had never heard anybody really give a good enough explanation as to how everything is one thing. Like the idea of oneness and non-duality and that kind of stuff. Never heard about it, right? And then I came, I interviewed my favorite person of all time, RIP Optimistic Banks, but he was the one that kind of taught us about, this non-duality and this idea of oneness. And he'd be like, dude, you're just fucking like, you're playing in a game and you think that all these other characters are separate from you. It's like, no, these are all just little rays of you. They're showing you who you are. They're showing you what you feel inside. And it took me a little while to really like, harness that and bring it in and almost use it as a lens or a filter to view reality, right? And so I started out like, I wanted to believe it, and then I believed it, and then I finally got to a stage to where I know it. Like, I know that to be true. Like, it's not a question anymore. Like, it's never been more evident in my life. And where I was going with that is that 2 years ago, I had almost never heard anybody ever say that. Now, I don't know if that's, the algorithm of my social media. I don't know if that's the fucking algorithm of the ones and zeros of this Matrix life. I don't know. But it seems like, man, everybody's almost like aware of this non-duality and this whole idea of oneness. I mean, I'm going on Gaia, and almost every guest that they have is talking about this idea of oneness. I'm like, where were you 2 years ago? Because I've never heard of this. I wish, but I think that we all have, a journey in order to be able to get to that point. Like it sounds lovely that everything is one thing. Like it's a beautiful thought. It's damn near poetic. But how do I know this? How can I experience this? And I'll tell you what, dude, through, loads of meditation, lots of past life regressions. I do the Dolores Cannon past life regression kind of stuff with the QHHT. Cool. I can't even tell you how many damn psychedelics I've done in my life. And it's obvious what it is. And I think the rest of the game is just about trying to convince as many other people as humanly possible. That's really the hard part. The easy part was me overcoming that challenge of understanding how that all works. But the hard part is like, all right, how can I just put this in the simplest possible terms to not trigger anybody, but also get them to see this oneness ideology, right?
Yeah.
And so, dude, I've like debated people on, you know, religion, whether it's on the show or in reality, and you know, the idea about what is God, you know, because they'll say that, you know, God is the Alpha and the Omega, he's the beginning and the end. Then they'll say, you know, that he has that he's like he's everywhere all the time, all at once, and that there isn't nothing that like that God is everything. And I'm like, all right, well, is that like just is that just like a sweet thing to say that God is everything, or do you like literally mean God is everything? Well, you know, I mean, it's not everything. I'm not God. You know, my dog's not God. You know, and I'm like, so what you're doing now is you're trying to essentially put God like in a box. You know, like you're saying what God can't do. Is that what you're saying? Exactly. You're saying that God couldn't be me. So he has limitations then, is what you're saying. You know what I mean? But people don't like to think about that because they're so attached to their tradition, and it's really hard to shake that kind of shit. It's almost like the old adage of like, it's impossible to wake somebody up who's pretending to be asleep.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just damn near impossible. But hey, dude, we're gonna give it the old college try and keep at it. You know,
there's no other game in town, man. This is the only thing to do, right? Like you said. And I mean, because if you look at it as a game, it's really helpful because if you wake everybody up in it, then we get to play it consciously. We get to design it. Like that's what fuels me is I know that if everybody saw reality for what it is, this planet would be a utopian planet. Without a doubt, there's nothing standing in our way of feeding and clothing and sheltering every person on this planet with ease. We've got all the resources. There's nothing that really stands in our way in terms of true physical limitations. And so that must mean that there's an imposed limitation. And we do it to ourselves, and we also accept it from our quote unquote leaders.
That's like one of my my buddy who I mentioned earlier, Optimistic Banks. He's like he was like a spiritual rapper, and all of his music was all in like the solfeggio frequency, so that whenever you listen to it, it actually vibed the correct way the music's supposed to go. You know, instead of this, you know, A being tuned to 440 garbage that really is just to perk your ears up and put you in survivor mode. But anyway, there's one of his lyrics. He goes, "Why the fuck am I paying rent? I was born on this planet." You know, and I'm like,
exactly.
That is interesting because if you went to another planet, you'd probably be pretty shocked to find out that like they're probably living free. You know, like that's how I like to imagine it anyway. But imagine going to like Atlantis. Do you think Atlanteans paid rent for their little speck of dirt? Like, or they just live there and they work together kind of thing, you know?
Well, they were conscious animals, man. They understood what they were and they aligned to natural law. But we live in an infinity, right? So there's an infinity of planets where they're just as imprisoned as us, and there's an infinity of planets that are more imprisoned than us. But then there's also an infinity of planets that are way more enlightened and aware than us. But that's the thing about an infinity. It's like all of it exists all at once. But a really interesting idea is that there's bigger infinities. And there are bigger, like a simple way to think about this is that the infinity of whole numbers is bigger than the infinity of negative numbers. The infinity of whole numbers is bigger than the infinity of odd numbers. So they're both infinite. They both go on forever, but the infinity is bigger because it includes all the whole numbers rather than just the odd ones.
Right. So it's almost like if you ever look at the fraction of 1/3, you know, it's just 0.33333 forever. Like if you really look at it, like people really round up, you know, like if you had 3 1/3, there's no way it could make a whole. Mathematically, it's impossible, but we just accept that to be true.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
It'll always be 0.99999999999. It'll never be 1.
Yeah. There's that little space for infinity in there.
Yeah.
And what happens is that because there's bigger infinities, it's more likely that there's love and balance and harmony and peace. So even though there's an infinity of enlightened planets and an infinity of dystopian planets, the infinity of enlightened planets is a higher infinity. It's a greater infinity because it's more likely that we are in harmony. Nature tends towards harmony, and only for brief moments does it get caught up in dissonance and tension. And brief moments can last millennia when you zoom out enough. So we're experiencing one of those brief moments that is about, 25 to 27,000 years or something like that. So it's just interesting that we actually exist in an infinity where it's more likely and yet equally infinite that there are utopian enlightened societies, and they're everywhere, man.
Yeah, they are. Dude, I want to get your perspective on this, just as far as, because we have both dabbled into the plant medicines of our day, and in your experience, like, because people always talk about, maybe they saw other worlds or maybe they saw other beings, and some of the time they're very like, like fractalized and geometrically perfect and everything's in unison and like these wild kind of like higher dimensional realities of sort. Do you think that even so the worlds within psychedelics and the worlds within dreams and the worlds within meditations, like, do you think that those worlds also actually exist at the same time as right now on top of us? I've heard people say that. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Oh boy, that's a fun question. It's so rich and nuanced. I guess my mind just goes to the simple fundamental truth of everything is happening all at once, all the time. And our experience of time is only through one individual prism. We are organizing. It's almost as if everything exists as a flash of light. And we are the intelligence that organizes those flashes of light in order so that we can see and understand ourselves. But it's all those flashes of light are just constantly flashing all the time for eternity. And all the flashes of light that can exist are existing all at once. So yes, everything
our awareness is collapsing the waveform.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yes, exactly. Our choice to hold awareness takes all of infinity and collapses it into something linear that we can then step into and experience. But my birth is happening right now. Everything is happening all at once, all the time. It's similar. I love I don't know if you ever read and or listened to the Conversations with God series, but it's a tremendous series that has so much beautiful, articulate insight. And the way they describe it, keep in mind this was written in the 90s. So God describes to Neil and says that, have you ever seen a CD-ROM that a kid plays a video game on? And he's like, yeah. He's like, all the possibilities that could happen in that game exist on that CD-ROM. Whether you kill the monster or don't kill the monster, whether you build the hut or don't build the hut, all the possibilities exist in potential on this CD-ROM. So everything exists in potential in the fractal unified field, in the quantum field. And we, as an individual perceiver, perceive it and collapse it into an experience. And all experiences are being experienced all at once. And we, as individuals here, just happen to be one little fractal of that. So yes, all of our dreams, all of our past lives, future lives, parallel lives, all happening all at once. And they are kind of stacked on top of each other in a sense. It's almost better to think of it more in frequency than it is to see it in physical matter. So it's not like here's a reality and here's another one on top, and here's another one on top. It's more so we are the infinite consciousness, and what we hold in our soul field, our karmic field, vibrates things into existence, and that's what we call into our experience. So the material world, the experience of reality, materializes when we choose it. But the potential is always there. The same way the potential is always on the CD-ROM. Yes. And then when we play the game, we put it in the headset, we put it in the console, then we can choose which options to choose out of that infinite potential.
Okay. You know what? I love the way your mind is working right now, because I think about this kind of shit all the time. Like, beautiful. All right. If you really want to get deep and super weird here for a second.
Always, please.
All right. So everything that is possible in this material realm, some people look at the possibilities as either of God or of the devil, right? Like the good things happen, that's God. The bad things happen, that's the devil. I don't know if I agree with that. I'll tell you why. Because if God, the one consciousness, the Almighty, the Alpha, the Omega, the one who continues to exist, if that thing created everything, then that means that that thing also created the possibility for somebody to get shot by a gun, somebody to get stabbed by a knife, somebody to be born with only, one or two limbs, right? It's like these are all possibilities within that hard drive that you were talking about, right? And so it's like, it's strange whenever people identify certain things as bad or good and almost separated from God. It's like, well, no, I think it's all God. And yes, I mean, whenever we talk about God, I think that there's frequencies of God. There's frequencies of consciousness, right? Like there's the higher frequencies, there's the lower frequencies. But just because something is lower frequency doesn't mean that it's farther away from God. That also would be God at that point, right? It's like a fun joke I always like to make is that, if God was so against like gay people, why did he put the G spot in the asshole? It's like that thing created that possibility. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Like that. I mean, it's just a funny way of looking at it, but it's like,
it's a great point, man.
Of all things, why are we saying that's evil and that's not? But like God literally wrote that in the code,
Absolutely.
That's weird. And so I think that we, obviously, I don't want to say obviously because there's a lot of people that are still under that spell, but I think that a lot of us are starting to come to this place is so much more vast and so much more magical than we ever really imagined. The idea of a birth and a death is crazy. Like if you really think about it, something being born is wild.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Like I got my third one on the way and I'm like,
oh no way.
What
That's
kind
amazing.
of fucking sorcery is this? And what's even crazier is that like I did that. Well, I took part in it.
You played a part. Yeah,
I played a part,
for sure.
But it's just so it's I don't know, dude. I get a little at a loss of words for things like this sometimes because there's almost too much to say and not enough time to really be able to whittle it down in a couple of words. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you, man.
I wanted to get your opinion. I always like getting everybody's opinion whenever we get a guest like this, but there seems to be a lot of people that are very excited for the UFO kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
And maybe they look up in the sky, they see orbs, clearly not a plane, clearly not a helicopter, it ain't no fucking drone. These things are moving at the speed of thought or the speed of light or whatever you want to look at it. Like it seems clearly something more profound than what a human meat suit and a human meat brain would be able to put together, right? It seems like that. And then you hear about everybody's alien experiences, whether they're channeling them or they see them walking in their bedroom in the middle of the night or they get abducted and all of these crazy stories. Everybody loves the Roswell story, right? Everybody loves the Betty and Barney Hill stories and all of this kind of stuff. But like, it makes me wonder. And obviously, like you look back at, like even ancient Egypt, they got like fucking flying saucers on the walls over there. It's like the strangest thing. But what I find strange is that like, is it possible that what we're calling aliens, maybe in mythology, in folklore, we would have called these fairies. We would have called these mythological creatures. We would have called these gods or goddesses. Could these all be the same thing, which would maybe even be like just the pure consciousness that is embodied into something? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Not to take away from aliens and not to take away from people's experiences with it, but like, I think that is kind of the outer shell to what we're really talking about,
Yeah. I how would I approach this? I would say yes, that a lot of what we see and what we experience and determine to be otherworldly beings are and could be very well beings that are native to this planet, but just exist, or native to this realm, but just exist on a different frequency that we don't normally see. I guess I just kind of lean towards the idea that everything exists. If we, again, we are the creators. So if we are thinking something and put belief and emotional energy into it, then it materializes into form. So the possibility that we are on a planet and that there's trillions upon trillions upon trillions of other planets out there, and some of them have other life, and some of them have gained the ability to transcend the speed of light, bend space in order to move through it at unfathomable speeds. That, if that's possible within consciousness, then of course it's happening. And so, yeah, I would say it's all of it. I really do feel it's all of it. There's fairies, there's gnomes, there's every type of mythological creature you can imagine exists on some plane of reality. And on our particular planet or plane, we are also attracting in other beings that appear to come from somewhere else. And whether that's if they change their vibration and materialize here, or they literally got in spaceships that can transcend the speed of light, I think both of them are likely. I don't see why it would be one and not the other.
You know, it's so funny. I asked this to the last guest, and I completely agreed with his observation. And then you said something totally different. And I also completely agree with that observation too.
Amazing.
It's like, why not? Man. Everything, dude. It's all everything. It does make me wonder though, like, is it a bit of an egregore that we're building, and that's what's allowing for the possibility of this to happen? You know, you think about like back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way really through like the 20 teens, most people looked at aliens and UFOs as almost like, that's silly, or,
of course,
you know, not really believing it. And now you got, you know, the White House releasing UFO documents, and really governments from all over the world. You should see some of the shit that's coming out of Brazil. It's crazy. But like, it almost makes me wonder, is this like a fucking conscious manifestation that we all just kind of subconsciously agreed on of something that would happen? I don't know. I like getting real weird with it. I'm all for the aliens. Don't get me wrong. Like I would love to meet an alien. That would be sick. But
I guess it's both and. I really do feel it's both and. Like, I see everything, every physical manifestation as a manifestation of egregore. Everything that exists because multiple minds think it exists. I did a video on this. I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's essentially the idea that each one of us is basically a portal or a channel through which infinite divine energy materializes itself into a world. So there's no, how would you call it, base reality. There's no one concrete reality that we either see or don't see. Everything that we see is a materialization of energy into form because we as God wanted it to come into form. So what you're projecting out into your world right now is your reality. And what I'm projecting out into my world right now is my reality. And we have a lot of overlap. We both are aware of that shiny bus behind you. So we agree that's reality. But if I started shifting channels and I saw that shiny bus as 10 times bigger, or I saw that shiny bus disappear, you would say, I'm out of touch with reality. But what I'm doing is I'm being out of touch with your reality. I'm on a different channel than you. If I saw a fairy bouncing up and down behind you, you would say, well, maybe you wouldn't say, but the average person would say you're hallucinating. That's not actually there. But what's happening is that I'm tuning to a different reality. Yes, exactly. I want to tune in. So this is the idea, is that we're living in this kind of perpetual soup of electromagnetic frequencies that we tune into and materialize through our intention. So yes, we've created the aliens, but we also created the dogs. We also created the rats. We also created the plants. We as God created it all. We've chosen to live a life of separateness in a way that we can experience ourselves. So we needed to create a world for that to happen. So we needed to create something that resembles the process of evolution. So we could go through this linear progression of ascending through different levels of consciousness, from mineral consciousness to plant consciousness, to bug consciousness, to animal consciousness, to human consciousness, to angel consciousness, to God's lowercase consciousness, to one God consciousness. And the cycle just repeats itself ad infinitum.
Oh,
So
you're essentially talking about Neoplatonism. Have you ever looked into that?
I'm familiar with Plato, but I don't know if I mean, Steiner talks a lot about Plato as well in his work. So
yeah,
please enlighten me.
So, so first there was Plato, who theorized like how this all works. And actually it said that Plato influenced the Bible. And whenever I saw that, I was like, Plato influenced the Bible? I thought that it was like, a holy rendering or something like that. But here's this
Sure.
philosopher that influenced the Bible. I'm like, okay, well, let me look into him, right? Yeah. And you look into Plato and his philosophy about like what is the true nature and stuff like that. And then he ended up, so he died and the theory evolved. And his student eventually ended up taking it and running it and turning it into something else called Neoplatonism, but his name was Plotinus. And Plotinus essentially turned it into what we talk about with Neoplatonism. Neo just means new Platonism. It's still the same thing,
or
right?
modern.
But Plotinus and Pluto essentially put together this ideology of, all right, so you have the one source, and everything stems from this one source. Everything does, right? But in order for that one source to get to know itself, or to be able to experience itself, or to almost like look at itself in the mirror, it decided to create something else as like it. I don't know if it was created or projected or something along those lines. But essentially, it creates what is called the nous, is what Plato calls Nous, nous. And the nous felt the same way. Like the nous couldn't necessarily see the one source, but it thought that it was all powerful. It thought that it created everything. It was wondering where it came from. And so in order to not be alone, it decided to create, something, a somewhat of a mirrored image. But the problem with these mirrored images is that, the farther down you go down in the line as far as emanations go, the more like rigid and physical they start to get, and they're almost like lesser variations of the one true source. Still the one true source, but lesser variations of it, right? So the nous ends up creating what is called the world soul, and the world soul is essentially like that's where you're going to have your ghosts and your aliens and your angels and the past ancestors and where we go, maybe whenever we die, whatever, according to Plato. And the world soul decided to do the same thing. And so whenever, it's said that we were created in God's image, well, if we're created in anybody's image, according to Plato, it would be from the image of the people or the consciousnesses or whatever within the world soul. And so the world soul ends up emanating farther, and the world soul ends up emanating what we know as the physical reality. So on that scale, we are the farthest emanation of the one true source, but it doesn't mean that we're any less or anything like that. But we're the farthest emanation, meaning like the material reality is the farthest from the highest frequency that would be the one source.
Yeah.
Damn, did I just crush that? Or
dude, that was awesome. That was great. I never knew all that. Like there's so many parallels and so many different myths. It's amazing. But I've never heard that one before, but I would 100% agree. Like this is the densest reality. Yes. This is where density is maximized, where we are leaning all the way into material and forgetting the spirit and forgetting the other layers of reality on top of that. But of course, we can't forget it entirely. So we get glimpses of it, we get experiences of it. And as we evolve as a consciousness and remove all the blocks in our own mind, then we start to see those things more and more. And then we ascend through the levels. We stop identifying so much with the physical body. We start to identify more with our energy body, with our spirit, with our field. And then we start to realize we are more than just this physicality. And then because of that, our physicality starts to change as well. It starts to become more fluid. It starts to become more energetic. It starts to become more light. And then over the course of millennia or however long it takes, we become like light beings. And that, again, ascends us closer to the one source again.
Yeah.
But we go through all these layers, man. We're always going through all the layers.
Dude, I tell you what, like looking back at all of the ancient religions, and my favorite is like the ancient Egyptian kind of stuff, you know, with Osiris and fucking Thoth and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that all of those people, they probably all prayed to and probably all believed in all of those gods back in ancient times. Maybe they even thought like, I don't care if they actually existed on this plane of existence or not. It doesn't really matter. I'm still going to pray and, you know, be obedient to these gods. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like nowadays people, if there's no physical documented proof, they don't believe. You know, which is really strange. It just goes to show like how far we have fallen from the spiritual world. Like these people used to get this information while in deep meditation, in a super trance, in a deep prayer, you know, kind of cycle. Dude, people used to literally pray for hours on end. Like the Muslims still do it nowadays. They pray for, it's like 7 or 8 times a day or something crazy like that. And they go into, you know, I think they're like 10 or 15 minutes long each. It's like crazy, right? But for some reason, if there's no physical proof, then it didn't happen. And I'm like, well, hold on. You're essentially calling this world, you're almost looking at it from a materialistic, scientific kind of standpoint as to how all of this was created. And what I love is that a lot of the modern philosophers are really starting to look at it backdoor style. And they're like, well, a lot of the philosophers are saying that like material reality, there's no way that material reality created consciousness. It has to be the other way around. You know, and that's exactly what all of the ancient books have said. You know, like before there was any kind of creation, there was ruach over the water, which is spirit over the water, right? Like it's crazy, but for some reason it just seems fugazi nowadays.
Yeah,
and
it's weird. I used that word today.
Fugazi.
Yeah,
you gotta throw it in there whenever you get a chance.
I haven't used that word almost ever in my life, except for when I learned the band. You know. There's a band called Fugazi or Fugazi or whatever. And then I know that clip from
Matthew McConaughey, Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, hilarious. I love it. Yeah, so good. No, I 100% agree with you, man. It's I found myself in that space. You know, it's beautiful. Like I actually really appreciate that I took that path of being this rigid skeptic because I didn't really grow up with any religion or spiritual background. My parents weren't into that. So, but I still kind of absorbed it from the culture. And I still believed in a God to some degree. But then I also got really terrified of the concept of hell. And I was like, fuck that. I don't want no part of that.
For real.
So then when I was like 11 years old, my friend tells me, man, nobody believes in God anymore. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I was freed from like the fear of hell. And then I just kind of leaned more into agnosticism and eventually atheism, essentially. And in my late teens, early 20s, I was just like, if it isn't in a peer-reviewed study, it's horseshit. That was my mentality. If you cannot show me a clinical trial that this theory is correct, then I don't believe it. And that was my mentality, which I appreciate to some level because I had this powerful scrutinizing mind that refused to believe anything unless I experienced it or have seen it or understood it for myself. I rejected all faith. But then through my experiences, I had experiences that I could not explain with the materialist doctrine that I was living by. Like I had synchronicities that were 1 billion to 1 odds. I had like 3 in a row within a couple days that I thought to myself, what are the odds that I would see this and then that in the same day? And I'm like, the odds have to be literally like 1 billion to 1. And I had 3 of these experiences so quickly back to back that I'm like, there has to be some greater orchestration here. Whether it's God or just like a simulation or I don't know, but there has to be something beyond the material world because the odds of this happening are too great. It doesn't make sense logically. So that broke my brain. And then I was like, well, maybe there's something more. And that's when my mind started to unravel.
Dude. The synchronicities will blow your goddamn mind. Like, I'll give you an example. And Cody's never heard this story. And so I'm sorry for everybody else that's heard it a few times. But Cody, you got to know this, especially for the context of it. So back whenever, a long time ago, me and Cody were trying out to be professional wrestlers. Okay.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
we were gonna do it, dude. We grew up always loving wrestling and always watching Monday Night Raw and SmackDown and
so good.
WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But whenever we were there was this one guy that came up to me, and I can't remember what his name is. He had it was like a girl name, but for a dude. I can't remember.
Okay.
Like one of those
Carrie or something.
something like that. Yeah. But anyway, he comes up to me and he was actually one of the announcers. So for all of the wrestling events, he would be at the table announcing the event, right? And I think it was Casey. That's what it was.
No way. That's so close.
So anyway, he comes up to me, and this is my first time ever talking to him. He goes, "Dude, you know what's really strange?" He goes, "Has anybody ever told you that you look like Stephen Amell?" And I was like, I didn't even know who the fuck that was. So I had to look it up. And he goes, well, it was it's the actor who played Arrow. If you ever seen that before. It's like a superhero show, but it's called Arrow.
Okay.
I think he's a DC character. But anyway,
Gotcha.
I watched it a few times, whatever. But so I thought, oh, well, that's a compliment, because I looked him up. He's a pretty handsome looking guy, right? And,
I'll take it.
dude, that was like 10 years ago. Somebody told me that. Nobody's told me ever before that. Nobody told me since. Until this past April, I went to WrestleMania in Las Vegas, right?
No way.
And it's always been like a dream of mine to go to a WrestleMania.
bet.
And it was awesome, especially it being in Vegas. That's like, what a cool place, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's Sin City, as they say, but it's only a sin if you let it be.
It's all God, man.
Yeah, exactly. So we go there, and we stayed at this one hotel. It's called Circus. And I love that hotel. We stayed there before. It's like really old, and I like it. Anyway, so in order to get to the stadium where WrestleMania is being held, you had to take like a couple of like these Amtrak kind of trains, like these electric trains, in order to get over there. And you could call like an Uber to come pick you up, but they were charging like a crazy amount to go 1.5 miles. It was like $80 to go 1.5 miles, which is crazy. Wow. And so we got it was a free tram track. So why not? Like, we'll take the walk, we'll take the free train, we'll get there, right? And you had to walk through the casino and stuff like that once you got off of the track in order to get to the stadium. So
Sure.
we're on the Amtrak, and this is day 2 of WrestleMania, right? WrestleMania is so big, they got to split it in 2 days. But this is day 2. We already know exactly how to get back and forth and everything. The first day we were really lost. But the second day we had a good idea about how to get there. So we took the Amtrak, and I told my wife, I was like, look, dude, we haven't played any of the casino games yet. I was like, we've been in Vegas for, more than 24 hours. We haven't hit a slot or a blackjack table or anything like that. And I'm not a big gambler, but when in Vegas,
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And so we get off the Amtrak, or we're on the Amtrak. I'm sorry. We're on the Amtrak, and this guy, random dude, is just staring at me. And I'm like, I look over at him. I give him like a look. I was like, what are you looking at? And he goes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to stare, but has anybody ever told you that you look like Stephen Amell? And I was like, oh, that's so funny, because the last time somebody told me that whenever I was wrestling. And here you're telling me this as I'm on the way to WrestleMania, right?
Oh.
And so, that was it. That was the end of that conversation. So we get off of the Amtrak, and we go, because remember I told you have to go into the casino in order to like walk to the stadium. And so that's whenever I told my wife, I was like, look, we gotta play some blackjack or something. Like, it's time. We got like an hour to burn. We left early. I sat down at a blackjack table, and I just sat down at like the cheapest blackjack table. I was like shocked to find that there was a $10 table over there. So I sat down at it, and I was like, all right, I'll play a couple hands and burn a little bit of time. I kid you fucking not. No one other than Stephen Amell was sitting at that table playing blackjack with me.
Oh my God,
Like,
the $10 table.
What are the odds? What are the odds of that?
Oh my God, you must have been so tripped out.
Of all people to sit down at a table, and you know what I mean? Like, that shook me. And dude, I sat down at that table honestly, whenever I first sat down at that table, I didn't know it was him. But I kept looking at him, and I was like, that can't be him. Like the odds of that being him after I just got done being told this, like that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you know what? That name is just in my mind. It's probably not real. Whatever. It's probably just another lookalike. I guess there's a lot of us that look the same, you know, kind of deal.
Sure.
And so as we're playing, he's like, you know, trying to get little tips from me because he goes, oh, you know, I'm not really a blackjack player. And he goes, what do you think I should hit or do you think I should stay right here? And I said, well, honestly, you know what I would do? I would split and double it because he had eights, right? And you always split and double eights and aces in blackjack. And so he goes, I told him that he should double it and, all right, split it and then double it. And so he did that and he ended up winning a shitload of money off of that. Like he only put like $50 up originally. He ended up making like $400 off of that one hand. Which is kind of crazy. Right. And so then the blackjack dealer is talking to him and she's like, hey, so what do you do? You know, what do you do for a living? And he goes, oh, well, you know, I'm an actor. I just got done shooting this TV show or this movie or whatever up in Canada somewhere. And I was like, okay.
Holy shit.
And dude, at that moment, I said, like, I just said it out loud. I was so shocked. I was like, we live in a fucking matrix, dude. And nobody knew the context. Nobody knew the context of why I was even saying that, but like everybody laughed. And but I don't know, dude. Like, you want to talk about synchronicities, dude? That one fucking blew my mind.
Did you tell him everything?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. When anytime I see an actor, like I'm always like, I don't really want to bother him, kind of deal.
Fair
Like
enough,
I just want to treat him like a regular person.
Of course.
But he did have his boy there with him, and that wasn't a well-known face. So I went up and talked to him, and I was like, because he went to go cash out, and Stephen Amell went and walked away, and I was like, hey, dude, I told him the whole story, and I was like, dude, somebody just told me that I look like him, and then I see him at this one table, and he was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And I said, yeah, that's why I said, do we live in a fucking matrix? And he goes, oh, that makes sense. I thought you were just kind of drunk. And I was like, not drunk, but it's just wild shit like that, dude. And I feel like they stack up, and like they get weirder and weirder and weirder and more impossible, you know, as you go.
100%.
You know?
100%, man. So what's your wrestler's name?
Oh, you know what? We didn't stay in it long enough to really do it. I think we were only in it for like a couple of months, and you know, you're training before you kind of build up your character. But we did get the opportunity to. Did we get the opportunity to like cut promos and stuff like that?
I think we just practiced like amongst ourselves at home, like in the mirror and stuff. We'd put ourselves in moves. Like he'd put me in the headlock and I'd just take it and then I'd reverse it and put him in one or behind the back chicken wing or something like that. Yeah. And we'd just go for, I swear it was at least an hour just reversing each other. It was the coolest thing.
All the collar and elbow stuff. Yeah, dude.
Yup.
Man, I do miss that. That was good times. But yeah, I mean, I have an idea about what I wanted to be. I think Cody, you wanted to be something like Jeff Hardy. Right? Or somebody told you that.
Somebody said that I look like I have that look when I'm in the ring, just like the way I moved, that it resembled Jeff Hardy and CM Punk. Like a mixture of the two.
Okay.
That's a good compliment.
Right. That's what I said.
Yeah.
So I was trying to do like these flips or getting over the top rope and like, you know, hitting somebody with a kick. Right, but like on the apron, I'd be on the apron and I would try to like kick Jonathan, right? You know, like with the kick, a side kick, like a luchador kind of move, and I just busted my ass, dude. And I was like, holy shit, they make that look so easy in real life.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun kind of building up that character though, you know, like because the options are endless. Like I've always really been fascinated with like, you know, the showboaters, you know, like I love that personality, and I wanted to come out as something like The Greatest Showman, you know, if you ever seen that movie. But now Cody Rhodes is doing it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm happy I didn't do that then.
Right.
Anyway, so for not the wrestling dorks out there, we can move on.
So let's not open that door because I'll start talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin and it won't end.
Hey, yes. Austin 316 says, I just came here and whipped your ass. So, Cody, do
I
you
love
have
how
any?
that's everybody's introduction to the Bible verse of 3:16. That was my introduction to that Bible verse.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Which is so funny because whenever Austin cut that promo, like it wasn't planned. He just heard, because I think he was going up against like Jake the Snake, if I'm not
Jake
mistaken.
the Snake. Yeah. And he was always saying John 3:16 and talking about God. Yeah.
He's always like, Jake the Snake, you're always talking about, John 3:16. Well, I got one message for you. Austin 3:16 came here and just whipped your ass or something like that. It was just
that's almost
perfect.
spot on, I'm pretty sure, man.
King of the Ring, right?
Yeah.
But Cody, do you have any questions for Michael?
No. Think I'm good. Just your story, man, is fascinating to me. Like you started in the dark, like a lot of people do or find themselves in. And you wanted to know the truth, and that led to your spiritual journey. You shared it with others, realized there was layers around the world of just different people, and then over the years you became somewhat of a counselor, dude, or a mentor. And I just find that so fascinating and just want to know, like, do you think all of that had to happen for you to be the good counselor or mentor that you are today?
I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, everything. It's easy for me now to look back at my life and understand that everything was needed. All the things that I used to condemn about my life. Just to give you some context, when I was really young, I was bullied, but like by my friends. I didn't have like bullies at school who weren't my friends. My greatest bullies were also my best friends. I was always the younger one. I was always 2 years younger than my friends. I was always smaller and skinnier. So I got a lot of, to put it frankly, abuse. And so I had a lot of pain and just suppressed rage and all that through my youth. And I tried to forget about it. I tried to not come from that identity. I tried to reform myself multiple times. I used to think if I could just move cities, then I could start anew and nobody will know me as this guy who gets beat up all the time. But it was like, no matter where I went and who I knew, I kept attracting the same thing. And that's when I started to realize, I was like, what am I doing? Like, am I causing my own bullying in a way? And in a sense I was. It was my energy. It was my way of being. I kind of lived in this like protective turtle shell of victimhood. So people that wanted to, impose their power saw me as an easy target. So I see all that now as beautiful and perfect. Like I bow down to my bullies now for making me who I am, because they taught me so much. Like I feel like I needed to experience all of those things in order to lead me into this deep suffering and just disdain for life and humanity. I had so much hatred and judgment towards everybody that it just hit a peak where I was like, I just honestly believe that humanity was inherently evil. I didn't necessarily look at it in the biblical sense of good and evil, but I thought that every human was just selfish and greedy. And given the opportunity, everybody would take advantage of everybody else in order to elevate themselves. And when people are nice, they're only doing it to gain favor in society. Nobody's actually coming from a true heart. Nobody actually is a good person. Everybody's just trying to take advantage. That was literally my doctrine. That's what I believed because of my upbringing. And I was shown the truth. Like, not only that wasn't true, but the opposite was true, that everybody is inherently good and they get lost in fear and lies. And when they believe in fear and lies, they end up becoming the worst versions of themselves. And so I'm able to look back now at my bullies and all the people that mistreated me. And I'm able to see like hurt people that were just trying to do their best, trying to make do in this world, trying to find some semblance of safety or power or love in some misguided way. And therefore I was able to forgive my own self because I was bullied and abused. I ended up becoming more of a disrespectful person and unkind to a lot of people in my life. So I look back at all the things I used to regret and all the ways I mistreated people. And I used to think I was an evil guy and terrible. And I look back at that and I'm like, hey man, you were just hurt. Little Mike was just trying to do his best to try to find love. So I feel like everything in my life, it's so easy to see my, what would you call it? My story arc. It's so easy to see it and be like, oh yeah, that was needed. I needed to be bullied there. My dad needed to not love me there. Like my sister needed to punch me in the face there. And I needed to get really good grades there. And I also needed to get really shit grades there. it's so obvious to me how everything was perfectly aligned to awaken me to my true nature. I can see my own story, and it's a beautiful one. And at the same time, I don't really identify with it. I don't really think it's a big deal or any specialness, or I don't think it's any more important than any other story. I think the beauty of realizing the truth of our nature is that we see that every single living being has that same beautiful, magical, amazing story. But it requires us seeing it through that lens in order to really experience the gratitude for it. And so, yeah, I think everything contributed to it. I think it was all necessary. And all the things, I could point to all kinds of things that make me skilled at what I do now. And it's interesting that a lot of it was my trauma. Like my ability to hear somebody's heart and know what they're feeling and thinking on a deeper level and know how to respond to them in such a way that I can kind of hold their hand and walk them out of the forest. My ability to do that comes from me being abused and then having to understand the psychology of everybody around me. I had to understand what makes my bullies mad and what makes them happy. When are they in a good mood and when are they in a bad mood? Are they upset about their mom being mean to them? Or are they upset because they got some bad marks in school? I had to be aware of all that in order to navigate life in such a way that I didn't get beaten up or thrown into a locker or, made fun of or something like that. So it was all my trauma, in a sense, that gave me these wonderful skills that I have now. But I'm no longer using them because I'm trying to make myself feel better. It's almost as if I just feel wonderful all the time now, for the most part. And I always know God and I always know truth, regardless of how I feel. So now I just get to utilize those skills of perception and understanding psychology to help my brothers and sisters on this path of realization. So I have deep gratitude for it. I'm very grateful for everything that's happened to me, for me.
So would you say that you almost at a certain point in your life, maybe you had a bit of like a victim mentality?
Oh yeah, that was the theme of my life from I would say around 6 or 7 years old, that really got to be cemented. Like I had older cousins that were always doing wrestling moves on me. I can't count the power bombs, or the figure 4 leg locks.
Of course.
I was always the one they would practice on, So I always was in this mentality that everyone picks on me. I literally believed I had the worst life. And I didn't experience anything like extremely traumatic in the traditional sense of like, my parents never beat me. I wasn't in extreme poverty. I was never, as far as I remember, I've never had any sexual abuse. But like all these things that would normally be the quote unquote worst things, I felt they paled in comparison to my life. I felt totally alienated. I felt totally alone in this world. I thought that everybody just was nice to me because they felt they should be. I didn't even believe my own friends liked me in some sense. Every girlfriend I ever had, I thought they were paid to go out with me. I just thought like the world is against me. And that got really solidified around grade 7. Some things happened in grade 7 that kind of prevented my ability to bounce back. Because when I was like 8 years old, I would get bullied by my friends. I'd go home. I might cry. I might complain to my mom. But then I'd go back hang out with my friends the next day and I'd have all kinds of fun and I wouldn't even remember that they were mean to me. But when I was in grade 7, a series of things happened that made me like not be able to bounce back. That's when I would say like victimhood solidified, depression solidified. And I thought I just had a terrible life. And that in some way or another persisted up until I was 24 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, victimhood was my common theme, I would say.
And so you finally end up learning how to flip the switch and look at reality in a completely different way, to where you're no longer feeling into that kind of victim mentality. Everybody hates you. You suck. You hate yourself. And that's a major flip to switch to flip, because it's literally turning your world upside down from what you thought was reality. You didn't necessarily need aliens to come down and tell you that you were special. It was more of like I treated myself so shittily in my day and I blamed it on everybody else. But now I see and I understand and I love all those people that, kind of put me through that so that you could eventually get to the point to where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a major flip. It was night and day, man. I like to think of things in terms of like the mechanics of the universe. And I like to see what happened to me as being sucked into the middle of a black hole and bursting out the other side. All that, I was like, I was being squeezed and I was being torn apart, and all of my identity and everything that I thought was me was just being destroyed. And I thought I was nothing and no one. And I thought this was the end of life. And then I emerged out into a new universe, and I was free and I was floating and I was weightless and I was full of love. And it was almost an overnight switch in a sense. There was a gradual like degradation of my sense of self. It was almost as if I was schizophrenic, tearing myself down every single day with internal thoughts. And at some point I was like, said to the voices, okay, if I am a piece of shit and everybody hates me, so what? So what? What now? What am I supposed to do with that information? Like, what the fuck? And it had nothing. It was just like, well, you're just a piece of shit. And I'm like, okay, so I just accept that. All right, I'm a piece of shit. Everybody hates me. Okay. And I just surrendered to it. And I was like, okay, so what if everybody did hate me? That's not true, obviously, but what if it was true? And I just let myself accept that reality. It was almost as if I accepted all the worst realities I can imagine, and then nothing scared me anymore. I could not be frightened anymore. And that was freedom, man. It was just like that flip was just, it was just night and day. I was in the darkest I've ever been in, fearful of everything, constantly anxious, thinking and putting on a face to everybody around me that made me appear as if I was the happiest dude ever. None of my friends saw this coming. They thought I was the happiest guy in the world because I was such a good actor. But everything just kind of flipped upside down at that point. And I just came out and I was just like, wow, no, I actually understand happiness now. I understand love. Like I actually feel love in my own being, and nobody's telling me they love me. I just feel it. It's here all the time. And as long as I stay aligned to what is true in my own mind, and I always remember the truth, and I live by the truth, and I practice the truth, then I will always feel love. And that was so obvious to me that I couldn't go back to living in fear. I don't think I could go back to suffering if I tried. I don't even think I could try. Like every part of my being would just resist it. Like I couldn't go to the store and buy a bottle of liquor and just down it the way I used to. It wouldn't work.
Because you know that it would be a lie.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like it's just absurd to me. So
wow. Yeah, that is quite something there. And I'll tell you what, dude, I can definitely align with you there that whenever you're going through this awakening, dude, you really do feel schizophrenic. Like you actually do feel crazy as fuck. And you wonder like how everybody else hasn't gotten to this point, and it's because maybe they've just been, resting on their laurels or just going with the flow and, not really trying to put too much thought into it. But there's something that's just beyond the veil that is slapping us right there in the face. And I feel like most people just do their absolute best to ignore it. And, and it's so weird because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like it's there, and it's crazy, but like you almost have to go into crazy mode in order to cross over, and call it whatever you want, schizophrenia, craziness. I think that it's kind of just doing shadow work, or stepping into the void or whatever it is, because you do feel very alone whenever you're going through those processes for sure. Oh, yeah. Like you feel very alienated. Like you feel alienated from yourself, which is a crazy feeling. Like you think that you're like, the way I feel about it is like whenever I was in those spaces, it almost made me feel like, God, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like what is wrong with me? How is nobody else thinking about this? How is nobody else like wondering about this? And I'm not trying to sit here and say that I cracked the code and it's not like that. Like I cracked the code for my reality. I understand it a little bit more subjectively, according to my vision and my mind and stuff like that. But man, it's a fucking rocky journey, dude.
Yes, indeed it is, man. And it's so worth it.
Oh, dude, it's the best.
So fucking worth it. Yeah.
It's the best, dude. Have you ever had like speaking on psychedelics, have you had like a really, really bad trip in your days too?
What's funny? The psychedelics that I've utilized the most would be LSD and psilocybin. And Well, unless you want to put cannabis in that category, like as a mild psychedelic.
It is.
But what's
for
funny
sure.
is about it is the worst trips I've ever had were on cannabis. The most mind-bending, I'm in hell forever now, was on cannabis. I haven't done like large doses of LSD, but somewhat significant. But LSD has always been my friend. It's never steered me wrong. It's brought me to states that were intense, but there was always this deeper knowing. It was like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And same with psilocybin. There was moments on psilocybin where I went into like the deepest parts of my shame. I remember one psilocybin trip where I was deeply aware of an aspect of myself that I hated, and I couldn't escape it. I'm like, I'm evil, and like, I am disgusting, and I am wretched. And I was just feeling all this shame and guilt for myself. So in a way, that was a pretty bad trip. But when it comes to like losing my mind, bad trips, and there was this time on cannabis when I was like 15 years old. I'd stopped smoking for like a year because I had a pretty bad trip beforehand that was just stressful. But then my friend convinced me one night to smoke a bong with him. And we were like 16 years old, 17 years old, maybe. And all around our town, we lived in a small town of like 8,000 people. There was this crazy phenomenon one night where all around our town were literally billions of moths. They came out of nowhere. They were there for one night and they disappeared. But if you looked at a light shining down like a street light, it looked like it was raining moths because they were everywhere. They were peppering the skies everywhere. And so my friend was like, dude, this is way too trippy. You got to smoke weed tonight. And I was like, no, man, it makes me crazy. I can't do it. And he just kept on the pressure. And I was like, fuck it. Okay, pack me a bong. And I immediately, the moment I got high, I was like, what have I done? And I just went into panic mode. And I said to my friend, I was like, please bring me home. Bring me home. And he's like, no, man, you got to see this thing. And he was driving around town trying to show me this thing. And I was like, no, just please bring me home. I'm going to die. And when I got home that night, I laid in my bed. I was convinced that I was having a heart attack because my left arm felt numb. And I was like, that's what happens when people have heart attacks. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be the first person to ever die from cannabis, and I'm going to ruin it for everybody. I'm going to go down in the history as the guy who dies. So then legalization never happens because of my failure. And I remember, I'm just going to turn on TV. TV will help me regulate. I'll be calm. I turned on something. It was like a sitcom, like Family Matters or something. And I literally could not comprehend what was being said on the screen. I could hear the words. I'm like, I know those words, but they won't string together properly for me to understand. I can't understand. So not only did I think I was losing my mind, but I was convinced that I had lost my mind forever. I was convinced I was going to wake up the next day and I was still going to be insane. And I thought to myself, if I wake up the next day and I'm still insane, I have no choice but to kill myself. That was my only logical reasoning. I was like, there's no way I can live like this. If this is my life, I'm done. I'm checking out. Cash my ticket. I am over. And luckily, I fell asleep eventually, and I woke up and I was somewhat sane again. But that planted a seed in my brain, like you can lose your fucking mind, dude. And then some later years, like I said, through the sober awakening, I eventually came to not fear psychedelics anymore. And I was like, I think I'm going to do LSD again with more intention this time. And I did it with the intention to going into the dark parts of my mind. I was like, I'm no longer afraid of my own mind. I know love is in my heart. I know I'm one with the all to some degree. I'm not afraid of my own mind anymore. So I took LSD, and it's a whole long story, but basically I was able to look at all of my deepest fears straight in the face. I was able to feel them and digest them through my body fully and totally. And there was no resistance to it. Even though I was facing the most terrifying things I'd ever imagined in my life, I was like, I'm okay. I'm going to get through this.
Like you weren't scared.
It was like I was physiologically scared. There was adrenaline pumped through my blood. I was breathing heavy. And yet my mind was like, this is crazy. Oh my God. But at the same time, the greater awareness is like, and you're going to get through it, my brother. We got you. I'm like, okay, so keep going. And that was the what I would say was the total annihilation of the separate self. Beforehand, I would say I had what was called a heart awakening. My heart opened up to the fact that love is always here and it's always present and everybody is made of love. That became true to me. and I still felt like connected to everybody, but I still saw myself as kind of a separate entity. I still knew that everything was made of the same energy. Everything's from the Big Bang, so to speak. Everything's made of the same vibrating energy. So I am everything. I am kind of the universe, but I'm also still Michael. But that LSD journey, that annihilated all of Michael. So much so that I couldn't, it was like Michael existed 1,000 years ago. And I was just in the void, one with God, hanging out in heaven for eternity. And I came back and I was like, all right, cool, man. Now I know heaven. I'm just going to carry on. So yeah, even the trip that on paper says I faced the biggest fears I ever experienced in my life, it was not a bad trip. It was absolutely perfect and beautiful. The bad trips I had were like 3 or 4 times on cannabis where I was convinced I was dying and I was going to be insane forever. Those were not fun at all.
Those bong rips are dangerous, bro. Like, and now you got people nowadays that are just ripping dabs. I'm like, are you fucking insane? Like, I get paranoid off of a hit of a joint, bro. Like, that's where I've gotten to. Like, I can't do it anymore. Like, it stresses me out. And I used to be one of those people that smoked every night before I went to sleep, right? Okay, it just because it was habit, I would fall asleep a lot faster, you know. And I was laying there one night. This is one of my last nights that I smoked before I went to bed. And I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I finally realized why I smoke it to go to sleep, because I can't fucking stand being awake whenever I'm high. Like, I just want it to be over. And that's like what makes me fall asleep, because I'm like, please just fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep. Because I hate it. Like, I've gotten to a point where I fucking hate it. And like, it's not comfortable. It's not like there's been times where you would smoke and you'd be like, you know, maybe you'd watch some cartoons or some Rick and Morty or something like that, and you'd be giggly and it'd be so much fun. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with this weed nowadays. I swear to God, it is literally, it causes panic attacks. And somebody just did some kind of research that I guess that there's some kind of chemical that they're using in the growing process. I can't remember what they're called. What the chemicals are called, but it's completely unnatural and completely foreign to the original way that plants were grown back in the day. And it's very, very unnatural, but they kind of use it to, it's not like Roundup, but I think that it's meant to like prevent bugs and shit from coming onto the plant. And that alone is what's causing like panic attacks within people that smoke weed nowadays.
I can imagine.
You talk to people nowadays, like, the weed is nowhere near. It's a completely different alien type of plant compared to what it was 10, 15 years ago. You know, like, it is not fun. It's not comfortable. I don't enjoy it. It is hell. It's the only time where I hate existing. And so I get it. Like, whenever you say that, like, you felt like you were going to die, bro, like, I try to go to sleep to prevent those thoughts. Like, that's why I did it, you know?
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. I've been scared to try acid, though. That's the ones, I haven't tried a lot of psychedelics, but that's one of the psychedelics I've always been like really fucking like hesitant to try for some reason.
Wow. Well, I mean, it gets a bad rep because it's a synthetic chemical, you know, but it's just synthesized ergot, which is just what grows on dying wheat, you know, but it's virtually identical. But because it has a man-made factor to it, it gives people a bit of hesitance, which is fair. Man doesn't make a whole lot of great stuff when it comes to drugs. It's usually better to go with nature.
So what, it was inspired by ergot?
Yeah. So the guy who created it or discovered it, you could say, is Albert Hoffman. Yeah. He was doing experiments to help with, I think, maybe headaches, or I don't know. There was a handful of other illnesses or that people were experiencing a lot of the time, and they hired him like, hey, there might be something in this ergot. So he studied ergot and he synthesized it and he made it as pure as possible. Like, LSD is like the purest kind of man-made chemical you can have, in a sense. I don't know if that's true, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a bunch of different chemicals together, like street ecstasy or something that has like countless chemicals. It's just one chemical, and it's virtually identical to ergot, and it binds to the same receptors in your body and in your brain that serotonin does. So it's almost identical to serotonin. So it lights up your brain. You know, you always hear that you only use like 10 or 20% of your brain at any given time. So when you take something like LSD, it lights up almost your entire brain, in a sense. So that's what makes you more aware. It makes you more sensitive. It makes you more cognitively powerful, which also can lead to all kinds of negative and scary thoughts too. So I think it also has got a bad rep in the whole, anti-drug war and stuff like that. It's acid, even just the word acid, like it burns through your brain and leaves holes in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's to be in your spine forever and all this stuff. Like there was a real heavy fear campaign around that. And so it's a little bit, and of course it's such a powerful substance, man. It's like the ocean. You don't want to fuck around with it. You don't it has power, and that's why it should be respected and honored. Because if you're not doing it with intention and through ceremony and the idea of I'm going to see more of the truth and see more of myself, if you're going into it to just have a good time, LSD can fuck you up. I've had some friends who've taken a lot of LSD recreationally and have never been the same again. And so I totally understand why people have hesitance towards it. I think it's something that you need to prepare for, similar to all the ancient teachings. You wouldn't be given the ancient mystery teachings your first day at the mystery school. Right. You have to go through rigorous training for years, even decades, to be welcomed into certain practices and certain knowledge. And I don't think psychedelics should be treated any differently. I think we should prepare for these things. We should be very aware of what we're getting ourselves into, and we should be very aware of our intention. Because if you're not willing to lose your mind, if you're not willing to lose your identity, you shouldn't be wrestling around with LSD, because it can fracture you in that sense. If you're trying to hold your identity as one thing, it will fracture it into pieces and scatter them to the wind, and you won't know who you are anymore. But if you're willing to die, and if you're willing to see that all of your identities are just illusions, and you are just a process of life unfolding, consciousness just experiencing itself, then LSD can be the most beautiful thing you ever experience. It certainly was for me.
Wow.
I mean, when it comes to psychedelics, I love mushrooms. I love psilocybin. It's a beautiful teacher. It's taught me so much about how to connect to nature and connect to the earth and connect to my emotions. But LSD just brings me to the absolute truth. When I was younger, I used to say to my friends when I was like 20 years old, I would say, mushrooms is like I'm standing in a room and there's like a vortex storm of papers flying around, and I grab a paper and I read it like, wow, that's crazy. And I grab another paper and I read it, and I can't really tell what paper I'm going to get. I just get flashes of images and ideas, and they just come and go, and they make sense, but then they're gone, and they make sense and then they're gone. And I feel something and then it's gone. And things are just chaotic and expansive and contractive, and it's all over the place, which can be beautiful at times and also terrifying at times. But LSD always gave me the impression that I was in the same room and all those papers were neatly organized into filing cabinets. And I could go over and pull over. It's like, here's where I was 8 years old. 8 years old, I was at my birthday party, and yes, my friend made fun of me, and it made me feel this, and I believed this, and that made me think that I was this kind of identity, and I can see that that's not true, and so I don't need that memory anymore. And it was just like this complete and total understanding of myself and complete and total understanding of life. And I don't want to talk it up to this degree, because I also want to caution people, because I don't want to make it sound like this panacea to psychology. It can certainly be powerful and it's helpful, but to your listeners who haven't experienced it or curious about it, I don't want to say like, hey, take LSD and then you'll be enlightened. That's certainly not the case. It's important that anything we embark on when it comes to psychedelics or any other types of medicines, any other types of practices, that we're doing them with the right intention, and we're doing them in the right way to the best of our ability, and we're honoring their power. They're not to be taken lightly. They're to be honored, to be bowed to be understood as something really profound. And I guess I just wanted to put that in, because what I'm saying and where I'm coming from now, I'm like, well, I'm just talking about how LSD basically saved my life, but that's not exactly how it happened. It was a great teacher for me. It was a great portal into a deeper understanding. I've probably taken it anywhere between 30 and 50 times in my life. And every time showed me something and reoriented me back to my deeper truth. And it also taught me how to be free of it. Like LSD showed me, like, you don't need me to be here. All this stuff, take care of your body, move your body, think true things, be kind, compassionate, practice meditation, practice breathing, just bring consciousness into your everyday life and do what you think is right, and you will remain in this truth. And you don't ever need to touch LSD again. So if we use these substances properly, like any good teacher, they let us go on our own.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Actually, I've always taken a keen interest in LSD and the people that were essentially like the connoisseurs of it. Like, I mean, obviously Hoffman, he's the one that created it, but Aldous Huxley, who wrote The Doors of Perception, which is really crazy. And that book is what inspired Jim Morrison and his whole band and everything, right? But so Aldous Huxley, did you know that on his deathbed, he said that he wanted to take LSD as he was dying, and his wife administered it to him, and he died tripping balls. I'm like, oh my God, that's probably the best way to go right there.
His wife said it was the most beautiful death.
And he was old too, I think. He was like in his 70s or some shit.
I think so, yeah. He's probably around there, yeah.
Wow.
He was one of my greatest inspirations. I found him shortly after my awakening, and I read The Doors of Perception, and it was just mind-blowing to me. I was like, this is it. It makes sense. Other people see it, because I thought I was alone in even seeing the truth. When I woke, I didn't know anybody else thought this. I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know anything about Hinduism or Buddhism or anything like that. And then I just started talking about all this truth I'm discovering, and my friends pointed me in the direction of Buddhism, which led me to Hinduism, which led me to like Ram Dass, which led me to Aldous Huxley, which led me to Eckhart Tolle, and I was like, whoa, there's other people that get it. And not only do they get it, they've known it for thousands of years.
Yep. It ain't nothing new. It's just a rediscovery.
Exactly.
Dude, here's a fun fact. So I was curious about how old he was, Huxley, whenever he died. He died whenever he was 69, right?
Wow. Okay.
So listen to the date that he died. And I don't know if you're a history buff. I'm not necessarily a history buff, but there was a big event that happened on the day that he died. November 22nd, 1963.
I don't know that one.
Everybody knows this event. Dude, he died the same day that JFK was assassinated.
Wow.
What are the odds of that?
Wow. That's a trip. I wonder what the orchestration is for that one, you know?
For real, dude. It was like a balancing act. It's like, it's so strange. But yeah, speaking on Hoffman here for a second, I did a little bit of research, and one of my buddies is the one that introduced me to this one psychedelic. It's called 4-ACO DMT, which is essentially, it's the way it was described to me is that if mushrooms and DMT had a baby, that's what you would get, right? That's the way it was described to me anyway, because it only lasts like 3.5 hours. You're getting like the DMT images, but you're also feeling like the mushroom, that feeling that you get whenever you're tripping on mushrooms. And so I did a lot of research before I tried it. And to be honest, I had these, it was like a bag of 4-ACOs that my buddy gave me. And I had it for like a year before I tried it because I was scared, right? But then I did a little bit of research. And do you know who came up with that concoction, that 4-ACO DMT? It was fucking Albert Hoffman, the same guy that created LSD. He created 4-ACO DMT, and he called it a designer drug. And so, dude, I've had the most mystical shit happen on that. Like, and I love it because it doesn't last 8 goddamn hours. I don't need that. Like, same thing with acid. Dude, acid, doesn't it last like 12 hours or some crazy shit?
It can, yeah. There's been times where I've taken it, and 14 hours later, I remember sitting on the toilet and the floor was still vibrating and moving. Oh. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Is this ever going to end? But I mean, I loved it, so I was happy. But
you hear about people taking it and then they go to sleep and they wake up and they're still tripping balls. I'm like, I'm good on that. I don't know about that part.
I did that once. My friends and I, when we used to take it a little bit more recreationally, we were in bands and we used to tour around, and we were on a tour one time, and I just happened to have some LSD, and some of my friends in the other band had never tried it. So we all decided to do it together. And it was like 11 o'clock at night, and we were drinking, and I took a hit, and maybe within an hour or so, I had gotten drunk and passed out. And then at like 3 or 4 a.m., I woke up and just wide eyed, and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening right now? I had totally forgotten that I'd taken it. And I was just so tripped out by the idea that my world was just so odd and I couldn't make sense of it. And yeah, that was a bit of a trip. I mean, I came to understand pretty quickly, and I didn't lose it. But it was still an interesting thing to wake up to.
Dude, and they always tell you never to look in a mirror while you're tripping. Have you ever done that?
Oh yeah, I never found that. I mean, I have found like, whoa, that looks weird. But there's been times, I mean, that time that I awakened fully, I eventually, when I came back to my body, I went and looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, that's not me.
Yeah,
that's not me.
Well, that's why they tell you not to do it, because you start to disassociate.
Yeah. But at that time, it was like, I was cool with it. It was just like, yeah, I know the body I'm in, but it's just the body I'm in. There's Michael, all this stuff. That's just where I'm at. It's not who I am.
That's just where I be right now. Yeah, it's my my cousin Sean. We were tripping one night, dude, and this motherfucker goes in the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror, and he comes out and he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry you guys have to look at that." And we all just died because he saw himself for what he was.
Oh my God.
And he's not an ugly guy, you know, it's just, he just has that. He's one of those people that'll make you laugh with literally every word that he says. Just so damn funny. Sure. But in that moment, it was hilarious. And dude, he came out of there and, dude, the wildest shit ever. Here, I'll share this real quick because I gotta look this up. Things for some reason get so much damn funnier whenever you're tripping, like way funnier than in like reality. Like you're laughing multi-dimensionally, you know what I mean? Like, so there was this one picture of Betty White back whenever she was younger. And so we were looking at it and it was like kind of updated and they added color to it and everything. But whenever we looked at it, we just both hysterically started laughing. And I was curious as to why he was laughing. I thought that we were laughing for the same reason, but I thought the reason why I was laughing at it was so random. I don't know why he would be laughing at it the same way. And so it was like a weird, funny kind of deal. I'm trying to find it here and I can't really find it, but they have a couple of similar ones. Anyway, so this is Betty White back in the day. I mean, Betty White used to be pretty good looking. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So here we go. So the image that we saw was very similar to this, like bringing it to life with the color and stuff like that. But it was so weird because we were laughing. Dude, we literally laughed for like 30 minutes long. I kept on having to go to the bathroom and like blow my nose. Like everything was coming out. Like it was one of those like hysterical laughs. And whenever I asked him whenever we were done laughing, because I would get to a point where I would be like almost done laughing. Like I'm tired of laughing. My face hurts. I don't want to laugh anymore. And then he would start picking it up again. And like, I just couldn't let it go, you know? And,
I know the feeling,
but whenever the nonsense was finally over, I looked over at him. I was like, dude, why are you laughing so hard? I want to know. And he goes, because it looks like he described it exactly how it was in my mind. It was almost like a telepathic joke. That he goes, she kind of looks like a picture that you would see in a haunted house where the face just follows you whenever you're walking by, because it was so creepy. But it was, I don't know, dude, it was just the weirdest thing. So that was my one telepathic thing that I have ever had. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but that one time, it really fucking blew my mind. But yeah, just really strange shit. Cody, you haven't really tried too many psychedelics in your day, have you?
Dude, I hate them. I just, for me, I just can't handle it. I don't think I'm ready yet. Like you said, you got to be ready.
Yeah, sure.
And I relate to that on a personal level. It's just they weren't all bad, but for the most part, I just wasn't ready. I just didn't want to. Yeah. So
that makes sense, man. Yeah, it's important that you have that insight and you're aware of that.
Yep.
Because some people will push through it, and it's a big mistake.
Oh yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not embodying that hanged man mentality, dude, fool, you're in for a rough ride. You got to go with the flow of whatever it's given you, because if you don't, dude, it'll
There's no getting off this ride, man. Once it starts, you're not getting off the ride. So you got to embrace it, and any resistance to it. Like I kind of fundamentally believe on some level that what we consider a bad trip is a resistance to the experience. That amplifies, like, oh, this is not, like, we start to feel it come on, and it makes us feel all kinds of things. And then we just start getting like, oh, I don't like this. I want it to stop. I want it to change. And that resistance, like, no, then it just kind of spirals in on itself. And that can be absolutely terrifying, horrifying even.
When you want to pull back, but you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's taking you.
Yeah, you're on the ride, man. There's no getting off. I've drunk myself stupid on psychedelics before, because I was like, I don't like it. I want it to stop. So I'll drink like 3 or 4 beer to numb the experience. And I've had to do that maybe once or twice. I don't even remember what it was. It was probably maybe mushrooms. I honestly don't remember. But when I used to do LSD, I used to have a 6-pack of beer ready just in case it got too intense. Because I always had this sense that this could really fuck me up if I'm not careful.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that it worked that way.
Well, I mean, it's, psychedelics kind of expand the awareness. Alcohol kind of diminishes it.
Right.
Simple, just in that simple sense. Yeah. But, I've been drunk on LSD before too, and it was still a pretty good time, and I could still feel and still sense everything, and it's still really beautiful. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. Like, I don't think you should ever mix something like a depressant with a psychedelic. It's not a wise idea.
Yeah, because at that point, it's like, man, I remember whenever I was younger, dude, people always wanted to get crossfaded. So they wanted to get like drunk and high, or pop an Adderall and then drink a shot of something or whatever, right? Like it's almost like the like Red Bull and vodka. Like,
sure,
that's a terrible idea, at least from my perspective, because every time I was high and drunk at the same time, even though they're both kind of like downers, for me, it fucked me up like in the brain, because I didn't know which one was fucking me up.
Sure.
And that would like throw me through a loop. But look, every episode we do a single card tarot reading, if that's okay with you, sir.
Oh yeah, cool, man. I'm all about it.
All right, and interestingly enough, we got the Temperance card, which is a beautiful card.
I don't know much about that one.
All right, I'll read it right here. I'm no tarot master, but that's why I always pull it right from this guided tarot book. I've been using this bad boy for like 3 years now. Okay. And I have a pretty decent feel for the tarot now, but I still like to refer to this book because the words are like synchronistic sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So the Temperance card is the 14th step on the Fool's Journey. Temperance teaches us to call on the angelic realm for support in taking a balanced approach, yielding results that are better than we could obtain on our own. Temperance reveals a promising path forward, but one that requires us to reach out for assistance from the divine. An angel stands with 1 foot on land and 1 foot in the water as they pour water back and forth between cups. The water appears to flow in both directions at once, representing the process of alchemy, wherein the impossible becomes possible through a connection with the divine. This card tells you that if you choose a path of thoughtful moderation, the divine will support you by taking action on your behalf. This is how alchemy works in the spiritual realm. Dude, I got to tell you, that seems like alchemy really sums up this episode. Like the idea of transmutation, the idea of turning the bad and the ugly into, using it as like a cannon to fire you into the realm that you were meant to be in. Like those things had to happen in order for you to get to this point, kind of deal. Yeah. And the idea of transmutation in general is, I love that. And to be honest, dude, some people look at that whole, the idea of like inner alchemy as like nonsense or whatever, but those are the people, those are the materialists. Like the idea of alchemy has always been internal. Like if you really think about it, even if, all of these things, it's always been like, all right, so the natural process of alchemy, if I was to put it into words, is that there's a black, white, and red stage. It has to go through these 3 stages in alchemy. It has to go through the negretto, which is the black, which is known as the blackening. It has to go through that blackening stage. And then it has to get purified. So it has to go through the white, which is called albedo. And then once it goes through the purification stage, then it goes into the red or the rubido stage. And one thing that I always found interesting, especially upon reading Helena Blavatsky's books, she talks about how there's this one character that's on this journey, and I gave Cody a book that's similar to this, that was written by one of her predecessors called Franz Hartmann. But anyway, she meets these adepts in the mountains, and they're showing her all of this mystical, magical shit. Like, it is one of the wildest journeys you can imagine. These people are like high up wizards, essentially. If humanity focused strictly on their spirituality, every moment of their life, you could get to that point, kind of idea, right? To where it would almost look like you have magic powers. The idea of manifesting or materializing something out of thin air, or levitation, or the power of 100 men, or whatever. Like, these seem like superpowers, but it's ultimately something that we have the capability of generating within ourselves if we only knew how, if we only could remember how. So, but anyway, so she goes and she meets this one adept, and this one adept is teaching her about alchemy. And they didn't go into, the chemicals or whatever that turned. So the idea is that the old story of alchemy is that you turn lead into gold, right?
Yeah, right.
And supposedly the story, as far as like spirituality goes, is that you're turning the lead, which is like the dead part in you, the one that you don't know that is everything, and you're turning it into gold, which is the most valuable thing. And so you're essentially turning that lead into gold. That's the process of transmutation, but it has to go through the blackening and the whitening and the reddening stage. And what I thought was really strange is that, so she goes up to this adept and she's like, all right, I want you to turn this piece of silver into gold. And she was asking the adept, like, can you teach me how to do this? I want to know how to do this. She goes, I'm not even trying to get rich. I just want to know how you're doing it. And supposedly there's some kind of red powder and within this process, and maybe that was the reddening part. I don't know, because they were very vague on their, specifications on it. But he ends up turning the silver into gold. But whenever he pulled it out of his pocket, it had like these tiny little red rubies, or these little red specks all over it. And he didn't know whether he, she, whoever's on this journey, didn't know if those were rubies, or maybe they didn't mix the formula up well enough because the red powder hadn't disintegrated into the hole or whatever. But it's always so interesting the way that people look at alchemy in that sense, because maybe there is a way for us to turn lead into gold, but how is that going to benefit us in any kind of spiritual way? We can't bring that shit with us. Every single materialistic thing is staying here no matter what, including our bodies, including our kids, including our dogs, including our TVs, all our cars, and all that shit. And so whenever people say, oh, it was never meant to be spiritual, I'm like, dude, that's why people don't know how to do fucking alchemy nowadays, because they forgot about the spiritual asset of it. You know?
Well, ironically enough, it's only through understanding the metaphysical and the spiritual that you would actually ever be able to do it physically anyways. Like, the people that, like, this would be a process through which you would actually be understanding the metaphysics of the mind and creation. And you have to start within with that. The more you're able to transmute the densities within yourself into what we would call gold or light, the more you get in tune with the capacity to manipulate the matter around you. Nobody who isn't aware of themselves and in tune with themselves will be able to actually take physical lead and turn it into physical gold. Maybe that's not true. Maybe there's some semblance of machinery that could vibrate the atoms at a certain frequency that could actually shift them. Who knows? But what I'm getting at is the people that are actually spiritually aligned with alchemy can do that with their bare hands. They could take lead, put it in their hand, and turn it into gold. Yes. Somebody might be able to develop a machine that can do the same thing. But it's the people that actually have the spiritual alchemy mastered that can do the physical alchemy with ease.
Dude, just to fuck you up here for a second. So there's so with all of these cards, there's like, do you want to look at it as a general reading, or do you want to look at it through the lens of love and romance, or career and money, or do you want to look at it in the reverse meaning and stuff like that? We always like to look at it through the personal / spiritual kind of setting, right? Obviously, for a show like this. And it says, whether you're struggling with something specific or just feeling lost, now is the perfect time to connect with the divine and welcome the messages that you receive. Use your intuitive guidance to move forward on your path to reach your highest self. Surrender to the plans of the universe.
Beautiful, man. I love it.
Yeah,
Praise the
baby.
Lord.
Man, I love it. Michael, look, this was a pleasure getting to know you and talk with you, man. We definitely got to do it again sometime. But if anybody wants to be able to reach out to you, where would they be able to find you?
Well, you can always go to my website, FurtherLiberation.com. FurtherLiberation on Instagram and YouTube. And that's pretty much it, I think. If you want to support me and my work, you can go to Patreon. Further Liberation there as well. Substack. I also do some writing on Substack from time to time. I think that's it. But
Perfect.
Those 2 words, Further Liberation, you'll find me through that.
Awesome. Yeah. And look, we're going to have all those links down in the show notes. That way, anybody wants to be able to reach out to you, they have the hyperlinks to just send you right there into the astral realm over to his information.
I love it, man. Jonathan, this has been a pleasure, man. I've really enjoyed talking to you, man. It's been a lot of fun. And Cody, is it?
Yes, Cody.
Cody, I didn't get to know you as much, but I'm glad you were here. And I appreciate your presence as well, man.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great being with you both. It's an honor to explore the truth with you both. And I can't express my gratitude enough. Well, I'd love to do it again. If you want to do it again, just let me know. I'd be happy to.
Absolutely will. Yes, thank you so much. This was awesome. Cody, any parting words for you, my good sir?
From the darkness to a counselor, man. What a journey we got to share together today. It's been incredible. I've been fascinated. I'm sure the viewers also will. But following what's true has clearly taken you so far through your journey. I appreciate the beginner tips, and I wish you the best, my man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, look, if Michael Jawn came here, if Further Liberation came here, and he taught you anything, it's that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird. Stay weird.